Hello, body of Messiah. Shalom. Today we're going to have our third lesson in biblical racial reconciliation. In the last lesson, we dismantled the belief that white supremacists hold, where they say that Canaan represents all black people and only black people and all black people. We dismantled this belief, which is a lie, because as you can see from here, Ham had three other sons, at least three other sons besides Canaan. So that belief is just false. This week, we're going to cover something a little bit different. I asked you guys in the last lesson to do a homework assignment where you are to research whether or not descendants of Canaan could also be descendants of Israel. Were there ever any offsprings that were also had a Canaanite mother or father, and then also had an Israelite mother or father, who in a marriage union had offspring? We're going to share some scriptures, about 4 scriptures regarding this. I'm not going to read the scriptures. I'm just going to summarize the scriptures, and you can go back and read them on your own. But this lesson is going to be titled The Offspring of Both Canaan and Israel. So we're going to begin this lesson because I want to shatter there are 2 lies that are out there coming from 2 different ends of the racial spectrum. From the white supremacist side, they imply that Israel is only all white people. That's what Israel represents. And Canaan represents only all black people, and that they are meant to be oppressed and cursed to brutal slavery. Not just slavery, but brutal slavery. And I'm going to dispel that lie. On the brown-black end of the spectrum, we have groups that are engaging in a type of supremacy that's happening, where they're saying that the Israelites are brown and black, which is true, and that they are descendants of Shem only. As you can see, Shem is here, and he's like the direct ancestor of Abram. Abram, who becomes Abraham. But they also try to say that the Hamites who are here are a totally separate race and group of people from the Israelites. And what we're going to do when we share these scriptures that show that the Canaanites and Israelites dwelt among each other and together, that's also not true. The Hamites were not a totally separate people from the Israelites. These groups that are engaging in this type of brown-black supremacy are also saying that the Hamites and the Europeans, the descendants of Japheth, they both engaged in the practice of subjecting Israel to slavery. So what we're going to show from these scriptures that I'm going to share with you is that Canaan and Israel dwelled together, roamed together, cohabitated, and intermarried. So you can pause this video and get ready for the scriptures, because like I said, I'm not going to read the scriptures. I'm just going to summarize them for you. Okay. Our first scripture comes from Genesis chapter 34. And this speaks about the incident at Shechem. You need to go and read the entire chapter. I'm just going to summarize. Shechem is a village that was also under the leadership of a prince named Shechem and his father Hamor, who was the king. King Hamor was a Hivite. And as you can see, the Hivites were amongst the tribes of Canaan. Shechem, the prince, saw Dinah. Dinah is the baby sister of Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. Dinah is the daughter of both Leah and Jacob, who is Israel. And what happened is Shechem came across her. He slept with her, raped her. I'm assuming a type of statutory rape. And then he kept her in the palace. So when the brothers came along and they were like, you raped our sister, you slept with her, and then you are keeping her in the palace. But Shechem really loved Dinah, and he wanted to marry her. So he went and begged his father, Hamor, please negotiate with the Israelites so that I can marry her. Asked him, what do I need to do in order for me to marry her? Because he really wanted to marry Dinah. So read the story because it gets deep. What happened is Simeon and Levi were not hearing it at all. what they did is convince Hamor and Shechem that the men need to be circumcised, and then possibly he could marry their sister Dana. But what happened is they got circumcised, the men at Shechem, and Levi and Simeon went and slaughtered all the men. After they slaughtered the men, they took the women and the children, the little children, both boys and girls, and brought them into the nation of Israel and kept them. They dwelt among them, lived among them. I'm certain beyond a shadow of doubt that they cohabitated and remarried with the women who were already married and of age of marriage, and also those young girls that were virgins and never been married. So the next story I'm going to share with you comes from Genesis chapter 38. And this is where, at the beginning of Genesis chapter 38, it specifically says that Judah married a Canaanite woman. Basically, he said that this Canaanite man named Shua, he took his daughter and married the daughter. He had three sons, Onan, and Shu. And so he married her and had three sons. The older two sons, and Onan, they actually did something wrong, evil in the eyes of Adonai. Tamar was married to the oldest son, but that oldest son intentionally did not have children with her. God was angry and took him out. Then she married the second brother, and so he did the same thing, which was evil in the eyes of Adonai, and so God took him out. And so the last brother was not of age, but Judah promised that when he became of age that he would marry Tamar and give her children. Tamar wasn't hearing all that. She didn't have time for that. So what she did is disguise herself as a prostitute. Judah's wife died, and when she died, he was grieving and sad. So he went to the town of Timnah, where Tamar heard he was going, and she disguised herself as a prostitute, slept with Judah, and had two sons by him. She had two sons named Perez and Zerah. So I don't know the nationality or the ethnic makeup of Tamar, but my assumption is she was Canaanite. They were all in the Canaanite region. Regardless, Judah did marry and had children by a Canaanite woman and was aware of all the rules that their father Israel would have instructed them to do or not to do. And he did not specify they should never marry, the Canaanite women. So the next scripture I'm going to share with you deals with Genesis chapter 42. In this scripture, Joseph, you may have heard from the biblical stories in the past. Remember, Joseph had the coat of many colors. The brothers were jealous of him. He was a tattletale. Anyway, they were going to kill him, but they cast him off into slavery. And at this point in Genesis 42 is before he gets ready to reveal himself. He asks his brothers, who does not realize that he is their brother Joseph. They just think he is an Egyptian. That where his father was, where their father was, and where was their baby brother. And continuously through Genesis chapter 42, they say they live in the land of Canaan, where we came from. The land of Canaan is where they reside. Our baby brother is the land of Canaan. That's where we are from, the land of Canaan. So it just shows you that they lived among the Canaanite in the land of Canaan and cohabitated with them and had children with them. Now, if you look at Genesis chapter 46, verse 10, it specifically says that Simeon, remember, one of the brothers who, did the deceptive thing in Shechem, that he had a son by a Canaanite woman. It says that specifically in Genesis chapter 46, verse 10. Now, you may be saying to yourself, no, I always thought that the Israelites were forbidden to marry any Canaanite people or intermarry with them because they were idol worshippers. Well, so were everybody else, among the Hamites, even among some of the Shemites, even among the descendants of Japheth. There were idol worshippers all around the nation of Israel. When we get to the Levitical laws, which happened about 500 years later, after the children of Israel are brought out of slavery, out of Egypt, that's when you have laws which specifically say that you're not to partake in the idol worship or practice of worshiping other gods or the evil practices of the people around you. Specifically, if you look at Leviticus chapter 18 and verses 1 through 5. God is warning the children of Israel, look, I'm sending you amongst this land, amongst the Canaanite people, to overtake it. This is going to be your land, but you are not to never engage in any of the practices that they hold. Idol worship practice, sacrificing children, doing sexually immoral acts in honor of these little g's, little gods. And so over and over again in Leviticus chapter 26, he's telling them, here, these are curses and things that are going to happen if you engage in the practices that these people I'm sending you amongst do. He didn't specifically say this for the Canaanite, which is applicable to them, but he's talking about all groups. You have to think the Egyptians engaged in idol worship and practices which worship little gods and not the Most High God. So we have to look at this picture in order to get the whole picture. We do not need to categorize ourselves and back ourselves in a corner and be divided as far as looking at certain groups of people. They all cohabitated together. They had children together. And you can't kick the Hamites to the curb. You can't kick the people who are descendants of Japheth all to the curb. Because even though the descendants of Japheth, you don't see them being mentioned too much at the beginning in Torah, but you do see a little bit about them in the Tanakh and some of the prophecies that are given. Still, God has the same expectations that he has for the nation of Israel. Do not gain the practices of idol worshipers. Do not abandon his mitzvot, which are his commands and his ordinance. These are to keep us spiritually in tune with him and to be drawn closer to him. Yeah, I know we're none of us are without sin, but one thing we are not expected to do as children of the Most High God is not to be engaging intentionally in sin and getting comfortable with it and trying to justify it. Okay, that's the end of lesson 3. Body of Messiah. I hope it was very fulfilling. I hope you learned some things. In the next lesson, you can go ahead and start researching. I'm going to cover some biblical kind of history that is associated with the descendants of Ham, specifically for Cush, Nimrod, and then Mizraim, which is Egypt. And then I'm going to specifically start sharing a little details about the Shemite people, how we lead down here to Abram. So you can go ahead and start researching it. And as a racial lesson, I'm going to show you how these people were brown, black people, predominantly. That is not portrayed in the media at all. The media is predominantly ran by, white descendants of European. So for some reason, they do not want to reflect this. They feel it's not popular, which may be so. But as John 4, chapter 24 says, we are to worship God in spirit and in truth. So we have to have truth along with this. And so racially, we got to shatter all these myths. We got to shatter all these lies that are going to try to divide us. All right, body of Messiah. May God continuously cover you with his shalom peace. Until next time, goodbye.